all of that, I do want to give a little bit of background about our new dean. And also, if you haven't figured this out before, Sevin Yeltekin, is our first female dean in Simon history. So our 8th dean on day 2, first female. We're making history here. This is very exciting. But prior to joining Simon, Dean Yeltekin was with Carnegie Mellon's Temper School of Management from 2005 to 2020. And she was most recently the Rohit Talani Distinguished Professorship. Well, she held that title. And she served as the Senior Associate Dean of Education. In addition to her dean duties, she was a professor of economics. And previously, she was a faculty member at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. Dean Yeltekin is a highly respected macroeconomics scholar and well known for her research in the design of sustainable monetary and fiscal policies in environments where policymakers and the public have informational asymmetry. She received a BA in economics and mathematics from Wellesley College and an MA and PhD in economics from Stanford University. So congratulations and welcome to Simon.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Day 2, actually on campus, and thank you for attending.
Yes, I'm very impressed that you were on campus. And of course, some of you, if you've been to the newly remodeled Carol Simon Hall, recognize where Dean Yeltekin is sitting today. Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned, we have several very interested alumni here who are anxious to get to know you and hear your thoughts. So we are going to start with some broader questions, and then we have received some submitted questions that I'd like to get to as well.
Sure.
So prior to becoming our dean, you served for many years as a professor and a macroeconomics scholar. What drew you to this field?
So I'm originally from Istanbul, Turkey, and I grew up, while I was growing up in Turkey, it was high inflation years, and I grew up in a developing nation. So, I would be sent to get the bread and milk in the morning, and every day I would have to take a different amount of money to be able to do that. And things would change, and people talked about the economy and inflation and economic policy all the time. So it became a fabric of what you did. But of course, at that time, I didn't quite understand how things worked. And I also was very interested in mathematics. That was my undergraduate degree in as well. And economics, combined my interest on, it's a social science that uses mathematical tools to answer societal and financial problems and economic problems. So that was a great combination for me. It certainly shed light on the country that I grew up in, and as well as really appealed to the fields that I was interested in pursuing.
So when Simon came calling, what drew you to our school?
Probably a similar thing in the sense that, I've known Simon both because the business education world is not a very big world. We tend to know about each other. At the same time, I have been on there's been a long-standing policy conference called originally the Carnegie Rochester Conference, and then NYU joined it about a decade and a half ago. And that's held every fall at Carnegie, and then in the spring between Rochester and NYU, it alternates. I've been on the board of that policy conference, which brings together economists and also practitioners to talk about sort of current policy and find solutions. I've been on the board since 2012, so I have a lot of colleagues at both the economics group at the ASNE as well as at Simon. And of course, I've known of the work of the Simon faculty and the thought leadership here. And there's a lot of things about the Simon School that really fit my interest and DNA. It's a highly analytical school. It's the first MBA that was STEM certified. It's unabashedly so. It does have this very analytical, data-driven, rigorous approach to education, graduate education. And compared to, I've said this in a couple of meetings over the last few days, compared to a lot of schools that has, a lot more resources. It really punches above its weight, given the resources, and that's extremely impressive to me. That shows an incredible dedication between faculty and students and staff and alumni who are all committed and doing great work for the school. And the community feel, of course, it's a small community, but that's a great thing to have. So everything about it just fit, just fit, and just really made me comfortable to be here. And here I am, hoping to make an impact and continue, the progress that Simon School has been making over the last sort of decade, and continue forward.
Excellent. I completely recognize your feeling of arriving on campus and getting to know people and feeling like this community is for me. Mm-hmm. So I had that feeling too.
Yes.
And I understand you've spent a lot of time the last few months with Dean Ainsley, or former Dean Ainsley, and the administrative team.
Yes.
I'm curious if you'll share any of your initial impressions of those first few months.
Yes, I mean, Dean Ainsley has done a tremendous amount of work and has had a huge impact over the last 6 years. So I'm extremely grateful to him, both for, doing all of the hard work and definitely setting me up for a good position to start from here. And as well as the generosity he's shown with his time over the last 2 months, helping me on board. It was extremely important, and it was very useful. I got to meet the staff, I got to meet the management team. And immediately, again, the first thing you realize is what a cohesive, collaborative, and very dedicated team they are. And I know, having been in administration, that is not an easy feat to achieve. And I'm extremely grateful to him for having, and to every member of this team, to welcoming me. I've met the faculty, of course, even the ones that I hadn't met in person, but through Zoom, of course. But there's a very dedicated faculty who've been here for a long time, who teach in a variety of our programs, as well as very happy, eager, junior faculty doing incredible research and really pushing the envelope in their own fields. And very excited students, very happy, excited, dedicated students, and I hope to meet more of them. So it's been a very good 2 months. I feel much more comfortable coming in, having had this exposure.
And then we talked briefly before the call that you plan to move to Rochester in August, and that's linked up with the campus opening. Can you just tell us a little more about that?
Absolutely. So we're, a lot of our the time these days is spent about configuring how we're going to open. And, it's not exactly a linear process. Things change, one step back, sometimes one step forward. But we're working out sort of the protocols about how to open for staff and faculty, and some of our operational activities first, and then the educational activities as well. And right now, we're still working mostly remotely, and beginning possibly next week, once we get the green light, we're going to start having some light opening, sort of if people want to come and use their offices or use some of the facilities because they need some tools here. That will be, what are the protocols? We'll have a training session. Everybody has to go through a training session. And then that will also inform how well we're going to manage when the students are back on campus, and how we're going to manage distancing, how we're going to manage flow from classrooms to other areas, to make sure that we do this as safely as possible. We're all eager to get back to normalcy, I'm sure, as so are our alumni who are logged in, but we want to do this thoughtfully and safely. So there's a little bit of a ramping up period that we're going to go through. But every day I am not only in touch with obviously the group at Simon, but I attend 3 times a week the provost circle about the COVID reopening, so that the university as a whole is not only giving us guidelines, but we're sharing best practices. And it helps to have a medical school who has very strong protocols, of course, and then trying to learn from them and apply them to the classrooms and educational and research activities here at Simon. So, there's going to be some hybrid. Not everything is going to be in person 100%. We don't expect it to be. And, but what we are trying to do is how to design everything in a way that the experience is still a full and a rich experience, even if some of it is going to be online. And that gives us flexibility too, because everybody has different needs, everybody has different constraints. We want to make sure that we honor that, and then we have a flexible approach to things.
And my understanding was the outgoing student survey, one of the things they indicated was some of these classes are almost better suited for online. So learning through that, right? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been teaching in a hybrid online MBA program for I taught for 7 years, because we had an MBA program at the Tepper School for a long time that was in the hybrid format. So I'm very well versed in it. And absolutely, it does make you think about, when COVID hit, all of us had to go online very quickly. And a lot of it had to be sort of, let's just get on Zoom and deliver, make sure that especially our graduating classes are making progress towards their, educational goals, and they're not delayed. But when you have a little bit of time and a little bit of sort of experience about how to design a class that goes online, it's actually quite an incredible activity to do, because it makes you really think about, what do I need to do in person, given that I have more limited time synchronously in person with the students? What goes asynchronous? How do I use the limited time I have with the students in an impactful way? It's that engagement piece that you want to sort of emphasize and you want to deliver in person. Some of the sort of the basic foundational concepts the students can review on their own, and some classes are better suited to this kind of activity. And we're learning a lot. We're learning how to do course design in a different way. And I think that's a very good thing. We all got a digital upgrade, whether we wanted it or not, and that this is going to just sort of, speed up the process of the 21st century delivery of education.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. I'm glad you've had experience at Tepper with that hybrid model for some time. I'm sure that will come in useful. I do want to ask you, just generally, so to take a step back again, what are some of the risks and at the same time opportunities that you see now for Simon?
The risks are similar to risks that any other business school or any other higher education is facing, right? I mean, it's if we cannot be a residential experience full-time as we had done in the past. That does, of course, affect enrollments, both domestic students, but especially on the international students. There are, immigration and travel restrictions that affect us all that, we unfortunately don't have a lot of control over, but we have to work around. And, those are the challenges that all schools are facing, certainly. Business schools, especially so, because business schools, unlike some of the sort of the sciences, tend not to run on grants. They tend to be more on tuition-based business models. So on the one hand, we need to learn to navigate through this crisis and hopefully arrive on the other side relatively unscathed and unbruised. On the other hand, it is an opportunity for us to think about what our business model is going forward. And that's everything from the modality of how we teach our classes to, what is our audience, and is our audience is just the traditional students who are trying to get their master's degree? Is there a sort of a lifelong learning that happens with our alumni, with people who've graduated over a long period of time, more collaboration with other schools, industry? So there are, I think, this time is challenging, but it's also a time where we kind of get a bit of a pass in ripping up some of the old models and thinking about the new models and of instruction, business, operations, everything. So I'd like to have a positive attitude about that and use it as really an opportunity to rethink how we move the school and education, higher education in general, forward.
So if you had a crystal ball through all of that, what would you hope or plan perhaps that your greatest impact on Simon will be in your tenure as dean?
Yes, I mean, I think definitely making the school, the school has tremendous history as well as continuing potential to be a thought leader. You know, we're a knowledge creating enterprise, and that's what makes us an important educational enterprise. We're not just sort of regurgitating or repackaging but other knowledge. We're also, you know, creating knowledge and keeping everything very fresh and bringing that into the classroom. You know, one of the things would be to make our resources and make our models really robust, so that, you know, crises happen. They unfortunately happen. You know, went through the financial crisis, now the pandemic crisis, of course, the crisis of sort of what we're facing in terms of the social unrest. And a lot of it has to do with equal opportunity access to resources, whether we think about that demographically, racially, gender-wise, sexual orientation-wise. And hopefully, you know, I will have made a mark as developing a more robust business school and higher education model that is also has equal access to all of the resources. That hopefully would be my legacy.
That's excellent. Thank you for that. I have run through the broad questions. So now we have received very interesting questions from some of our alumni. So I'd like to pose some of those now. So how have the recent events, like, I mean, I could run a long list, but the ones cited were COVID-19, the economic recession, the George Floyd protests, and more, the expansion of that. How has that shaped your role and your approach at this time specifically?
Yes, I mean, you know, I've already touched on some of the things that related to COVID, certainly. And again, I think, is it really a big change rather than a renewed focus? I think times like this, we see what the cracks in the system are, you know, whether it's our business model or whether we've really made significant headway in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space or not. You know, frankly, I think universities tend to be, you know, lean towards creating a safe space where I think that's extremely valuable, but at the same time, that doesn't really necessarily move the needle anywhere outside of the university spaces. I think it is now time for action rather than messaging or just creating. Obviously, we want the experience for all of our students and all of our faculty and staff to be a rich and a good experience, but we need to start working towards actually changing the system. And that's going to take a lot of work, a lot of renewed concentration, a lot of planning, and you know, and I'm very committed to doing that. You know, one of the things you asked about, you know, where do I want to be 5-10 years from now, what impact? And I think that equity piece is extremely important to me. I come from a minority in my own, you know, home country. Not that I can really say that by any means that I've had the same experience as our Black and African American community members have had in the United States, but I have a tremendous amount of empathy for that and for the hardship and the day in and day out sort of you know, demoralization and the difficulties faced. I really would like to make an impact, and that will be a big part of my strategy for the school. But it needs to go beyond the school. It needs to make an impact on the rest of the university as well as the Rochester community. So, and you know, I would love to hear our alumni views on this as well, and both use your experience, not just while you were at Simon, but also your experience in the world after you've left Simon. And I would like to invite everybody into that conversation and see how we can make an impactful strategy moving forward. Yes, you know, we're living through a few crises, and part of it is, you know, it's easy to say these are sort of things that are external, but they're not really. You know, it does also show some cracks in the system that we absolutely need to fix.
So another question that was asked, which is, I think, a good question to go into now, is how do you plan to train the staff and the students on diversity and inclusion topics in this new era?
Yes, I mean, so this is where I can't say that I have the magic answer to that yet. You know, I have a lot of learning to do myself, and part of what we've started to do is to bring together a good, nice, vetted set of resources, both sort of, you know, personal training that that our community can do on their own time, but as well as more organized training on this part. And the thinking sometimes changes, right? We used to have a lot of kind of anti-bias training, and then some research found out that that actually sometimes didn't really hit the mark, or sometimes even backfired. The first step is to really look for the best practices that have quantifiably good outcomes. I don't like to go on fads on any dimension of what I do. The first step is going to be, how do we identify some of the best practices and the best resources? And I am also, I believe really in iterative processes. I really believe in continuous improvement. We're not going to always hit it right the first moment or in every aspect of how we want to do this training. But I'm a scholar, we're in a learning institution, we will learn along the way and we will do better. And in each step of the way, we will do better. So we're working with a student task force as well as as a staff and faculty task force. And the first step is to identify these resources and put together a strategic plan.
Good. So speaking of strategic plans, we did not plan this, but that's my next question for you. So what are 2 or 3 strategic goals that you hope to achieve in the next year?
In the next year. Okay. So one of them is definitely navigating the school through the sort of all aspects of the COVID crisis, right? That's whether that's on the, reopening, on the operational difficulties and constraints. And at the same time, making sure that we arrive on the other side, both financially and intact. So that's certainly a goal. I want to have a robust diversity and equity plan with action items and with measurable outcomes and a timeline plan by that point. And at the same time, I want to have a direction about, where do we want to invest our time and resources in terms of our research and our educational programs, right? We never want to become stale. We don't want to be jumping on fads and bandwagons all the time, but we do, like any other business, we need to continue to innovate, and we need to continue to think about how we expand our reach and how we can, Simon School with its MBA program, then its master's programs have come up with a variety of alternatives that really utilizes the strengths of this community and the faculty's knowledge and expertise. But there are other areas where we can certainly, at the intersection of kind of, technology and business, healthcare, health tech and business, some of those shoots obviously already exist, and we can build upon those, as well as sort of delivery modes, right? Online and hybrid models that really distinguish us from from what's already out there.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to shift gears slightly. Mm-hmm. What is your plan to enhance the interaction in terms of career advice, mentorship, and other things between alumni and current students?
Oh, this is one of the reasons I wanted to do not only this particular session, but continue to do a series of these. When I first started my associate dean job at Tepper, we had the alumni office and our executive education sit almost physically, as well as sort of operationally separate from the rest of our educational programs. And that really made never sense to me. I'm a scholar. I want to learn every day. That's why, as my kids say, you still go to school, they say to me. And I don't say I go to work, I go to school. And it's because I want to continually learn. And education doesn't stop when somebody gets their diploma. It doesn't stop. We continue to learn on the job. We continue to learn from our experiences. But what's important for our the student and the alumni connection are multifold. First of all, it's a shared experience, right? A shared experience is a great place to start from. Obviously, there's something that draw both our alumni and our current students to the school, whether that's the curriculum, the co-curricular activities, the community feel, everything else. So there's, shared goals and shared, preferences there. But at the same time, I really view our alumni as being sort of this other part of the spectrum of learning for our students. We deliver the educational programs that happen in the classroom and also happen in our career center and through our student services and so on. But that's not where it ends. Our alumni can provide a tremendous amount of feedback, so that we can continue to improve our programs, we can continue to improve what we deliver. At the same time, there's a tremendous wealth of information and experience that we can really use. I mean, just to give an example, we have alumni who are now navigating this pandemic in their own businesses, in their own industry, as well as alumni who've gone through another crisis about a decade ago through the financial crisis. Our students need to learn, and so do we, about how to be agile, how to be flexible, and how to navigate through a crisis. And this is where we can absolutely use the mentorship of our alumni to help get our next generation of students ready for the workplace. And and other things that we don't necessarily teach in a formal classroom, from really managing some of the behavioral skills that come along with sort of moving up into leadership positions. And some of those we can impart in a structured classroom or co-curricular activities. Some of it is just really learning by watching and learning by example, and that's where our alumni. So I want to maybe help design a more of a formal process where our alumni can, if they have the bandwidth, sign up to do some mentorship for our students, and for us to deliver sort of, maybe some sort of continuous education to our alumni. Because even over the last decade, the kind of sort of tech tools, data tools, other tools have changed significantly. And I need to upskill quite a few people who've graduated, let's say, more than 5 to 10 years ago, may want to learn some of these tools, at least get conversational and well versed in them. And that would be the flip side of that, is that how we continue to contribute to the education of our alumni.
So that's very helpful, because you certainly have an audience of very interested alumni who are here to help the school. We are here to help you. So I heard you say, keep providing feedback, be open to mentorship, ask what we need from the school and the community, build those ties. Did I miss anything? Any other ways we can help you?
We are trying to raise the next talent pool, right? And your feedback is extremely important. You are looking for talent. We're trying to raise the next talent pool. And this is where I think we both have very strong interest to collaborate together and make that bond stronger. That would benefit both the school, our students, of course, and also our alumni.
Good. I'm looking at the clock and we've run out of time.
I did warn you we're not going to get through many
I know, that did fly by.
But this is nice. We'll do this again. I mean, this is an introductory one. We will continue to have these conversations. I would really like to get the feedback and learn. This is extremely valuable for me. So,
well, and it's extremely valuable for us just to start to get to know you, learn how your mind works. This has been a nice conversation for me, so I'm grateful for that. And I want everyone to help me welcome Dean Yeltekin. We are making history here, and that's very exciting. I get chills when I think about it. So I hope you all stay well. Thank you for your time this morning. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the questions and the warm welcome to everybody who's written through LinkedIn, messaged me, and I'm excited to be at the very beginning of this journey, despite these are unusual and difficult circumstances, but I think we will get through it together as a community and get to the other side. We have great staff, faculty, and students here, and we will continue these conversations and hope to meet you, hopefully most of you, in person soon.
Yes, someday.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a good day.